When I start my day in gratitude, it's real hard for me to have a poor day. It's easy to forget that my problems today in a life that's built on recovery were better than my sweetest dreams 15 years ago. If I know anything about the higher power of my understanding, it is an open door, fresh, clean slate every moment of every day.
What does it take to rebuild a life? To rise from the ashes of addiction and rediscover purpose, meaning, and hope? I've walked that road myself. The principles that helped me recover didn't just save me, they reshaped how I live. Now I'm sitting down with guests from all walks of life to ask a bigger question. Could these same principles help anyone? Not just people battling addiction, but anyone who feels stuck, broken, or searching for something more. I'm Aaron Prager, and this is American Recovery. I got to tell you this, just as I'm a personal fan of yours to begin with, the Die Sober podcast you guys had running over on YouTube. Talk about authentic, like that to me, it's like really, that digs at the stuff that I care about the most, helping people. But before we get into all this real quick, tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do for a living, how you got here.
Man, okay, I got here on Southwest yesterday, but I got there getting sober, locked up. And I got sober locked up because I was the kid with 1,000 chances and burned them all. And I had a mom and dad that loved me enough to tell me no when it mattered the most. I don't know if I ran to growth or growth ran to me, but you know, the tackle drill happened. And I either won or lost, depending on how you look at it. But that was 15 years ago in April. And I don't deserve the life I have today, but every bit of it that's worth celebrating is through recovery. And so for 13 of the last 15, I've been working in some form of the treatment industry. And you know, the thing that I love the most about my work is family consulting and intervention.
We've already in the previous episode discussed powerlessness and the power and the freeing aspect actually of being able to cede control and differentiating between surrender and giving up. Right, I think one of the greatest ways that Zach had explained it was, you know, surrender is, you know, the army lays their arms down at the side of the road and awaits instructions for what happens next. I was talking with somebody who doesn't have substance use disorder, because I know most people, their minds immediately go into, oh, well, substance use disorder. We're talking about recovery, and, you know, rehab, and most people think rehab, they think immediate, their mind goes to drugs. But I was talking with somebody the other day who doesn't have substance use disorder, and he was relating to a lot of the problems that I used to have, you know, because I was giving my experience about what I had gone through in the past, right? And he was like, wow, I'm identifying in with this. I'm like, oh, my life is unmanageable, X, Y, and Z. So I thought to myself, do these principles have wider implications? Like, can they help more people than it just being niched down to substance use disorder? And I mean, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things to actually talk about is God nowadays. I love talking about how God has come into my life and whatnot, but you can't talk about that without talking about like the pre-contemplative stage of God, if you will.
Right.
I thought you'd be a good person to bring in and really drive on this topic of the second principle of recovery as we know it, coming to believe, right? We're not quite at the place yet where we're going to make a conscious decision to do so potentially, and being somebody in recovery yourself, having that personal experience.
Yeah, well, you know, if you look at that second step, it's really broken down into three parts. So came to believe, meaning it's a process. There's skepticism and resistance, and some foot dragging can be allowed, right? Certainly was the case for me, and certainly the case for most of the folks that we interact with professionally, and you know, and in my own recovery, the guys and girls that I get to know, like, you know, not everyone has like a burning bush. Like, I came to believe that this is who my higher power is. This is what they want for me. This is what I need to do to perform. You know, it's a mixed bag. You know, and I think for most of the people that I come across, their experiences like mine, I come to believe. For me, coming to a place where was I really sure that I wanted to believe in God? Or was I really sure that I just didn't want to believe in the God that I was kind of force-fed as a recovering Catholic Catholic school kid. That to me was a difference maker. And once it was explained to me that I didn't have to roll with that stock info that I grew up with, I was allowed to grow into this idea that higher power, or God, as I call him today, could be the entity that I kind of mocked up, and I tend to think that he's happy, he's benevolent, he wants to see me happy, he wants to see me give away the gifts that I receive from him, like hope and peace and joy. He wants to see me like be active in my own life and be an example of what his power can do. For those that are still struggling, to come up with their own identity for who they think their higher power is, it could be community, it could be nature.
Community was for me. Yeah.
Right, because you get to see power and you get to feel connection, right?
Well, speaking about connection, I mean, we kind of touched upon a little bit about like who you are and how you got here, but you work with people, but more specifically, how did you get into that line of work? Man, exactly. There was one moment where, so I used to look a little bit scarier years ago, and I got invited to go be kind of just be scary, be scary, be quiet in a young men's intervention that the interventionist thought was going to go off the rails just due to this guy's history. You were the goon. I was the goon. I was the paid goon, and what I saw was a timid young dude. We go upstairs as a group. It's me, the interventionist, two brothers, and a father. This young man's mom had passed away in hospice care, and this kid was so sick on drugs, he was stealing his mother's comfort meds on the day that she died. Right? She died uncomfortable, due to his stealing her meds, and his addiction had grown worse over the next couple of years. And Dad knocks on the door. He tells him while we're all there, and he looks up. He's got a video game in his hand. He looks up. He says, "Daddy, what took you so long?" And that was like getting a lightning bolt shot in the heart. And I was like, man, if I can learn how to do this, and I get to see this kind of family miracle every day, this is how I want to go through life. And so that's how I'm started and got here. So was that like the turning point that you realized that this is what you were meant to do? I didn't know if I was meant to do it or if I could be good enough to do it, but I knew I was going to find out if I could be, and that was a multiple year kind of process to get there. But I kept getting little hope snacks on the way, like, hey, you're supposed to do this. Hey, you're supposed to do this. Just a little bit of evidence that like, hey, I was supposed to see this. And if I was supposed to see this, I'm probably supposed to see something else like it. My story includes a lot of intravenous drug use, a lot of shoving stuff up my nose, and a lot of these things, very, very, self-centered, egotistical, all the adjectives that kind of come along with that lifestyle, good old degen. You touched on how at the beginning, it could be community, it could be nature, right? I love one of my favorite acronyms for God is group of drunks. Yeah. One of my favorite ones. And it's because it's such an easy thing for somebody to hold on to at the beginning. It's so simple for somebody to go, oh, wait a second. You're not talking about, you're talking about Joe Shit the Rag Man and his buddy. They're just like me. And I'm witnessing their change right there. And they're not, telling me that I have to believe in their version of God. Right. And that's a powerful statement. But just because, and this is the question I kind of wanted to, to launch this into our next segment on is do you need to nail down in the moment what your higher power is, or can it evolve over time? I think that me personally, I have to say that it can evolve, because my idea of who my higher power is and what I call him, how I talk to him, the entire dynamic has grown over time. I think the first kernel of willingness to believe that, kind of like you, like how am I in fact the luckiest human being alive? At the point where I was even considering, or another 1,000th chance at life was being considered for me. Was I really that lucky, or was there a divine hand on my life? And I've never considered myself to be lucky. And then I stop and think, wait a minute. What if I got caught for all the things I did instead of just these handful, right? I'm going to be done for. So yeah, I totally believe that. It was one of the things I think that's ended up saving my journey, if you will, was you don't have to nail it down, but are you willing to even believe in the potential that something is out there bigger than you. But in the process of that, I mean, I don't know about you, but what practices or rituals end up helping people to get into a spot where they can maybe even believe in something?
I think being grateful as a practice. It's how I start my day on the good days. I can't claim to be 100%, and I won't lie on camera. But when I start my day in gratitude, it's real hard for me to have a poor day. It's possible because I can screw up at any given moment. But when I start the day going, man, I am so fortunate to wake up in comfort, in peace, in quiet. My next meal's in the refrigerator. Coffee's in the refrigerator. My little boy's right down the hallway. You know, my dumb German Shepherd that barks at his own shadow is right outside. And I know he's there because he's already barked at himself. But like the things that I can take for granted so quickly will blow my mind, right? And when I'm not grateful for those tiny, tiny things, it's easy to forget that my problems today in a life that's built on recovery were better than my sweetest dreams 15 years ago. You know, I didn't have the creative mind to think of the problems that I have today 15 years ago. My biggest problem then was, am I going to run out of Coke? What time? Who am I going to scam and for how much to get more?
Is this journey, is any of this even possible if you're not going to be taking mental gratitude notes along the way?
I think there's probably a lower trajectory for those of us who aren't grateful, but there's definitely you definitely can't enjoy it if you're not grateful for it, right? Because if I'm not taking account of all the grace that's been put in my life for me to enjoy, well, I can't live with it. If I'm not cognizant of how much better my life is because of what I've been given, then I can't transmit it, I can't give it away. And so it's an empty deal, right? It's like going shopping and like before you're out of the store, you want to go buy something else because you don't appreciate the new crispy white shoes you got, right? You may as well already just throw them in the mud.
This is applicable to everybody on planet Earth. It's, if you're at a spot, right, you need help, your way of life isn't working, and you're able to get past the I know everything, then the next logical thing is, what can help me? And if you can get to what can help you, what can help me, what can get me going right now, then inevitably we have to be willing to look at things beyond ourselves. Because once again, our way of life wasn't working.
Right.
And getting back to today's principle of belief, I mean, did you believe that ripping and running was good for you? Did you believe that, if you just bought another OnlyFans subscription, if you just, drove the car a little too fast another time, or whatever it is, did you believe that was going to make your life better? No, you didn't think so.
Right.
You didn't think so, but yet you're going to balk at that maybe something can come into your life and work as a positive?
Right. I think so for me as a recovering, as a drug addict, right, alcoholic, you mentioned step one, like we come to know that I'm powerless over this thing, Coke, drugs, booze, whatever. I'm powerless. I've seen multiple indictments and felt multiple indictments and the pain that goes along with them all the way around my life, not just legal, but relationship, health, mental health, financial, all of it. Like my life sucks that way. It hurts and it's going to kill me, right? And so for me, coming from a drug background, that's really easy for me to go, yeah, my life is unmanageable. Now you take somebody who's a normal person, right? They're in a relationship with toxic patterns where they're chasing the high of a relationship, or they're chasing being wanted or being needed by their partner. You take somebody who's working crazy hours and takes on too much responsibility to be a healthy person from their job or their career. Throw anything out. Somebody who's got a shopping problem, they can't seem to get enough stuff. Where's that come from? And I think for a lot of people, if you look in there, you go, well, man, let's start talking about relationship patterns from when you were a kid. Let's start looking at family origin stuff. And if you can make it all the way through there and cross that off, cool. Then you got a whole other list of questions to go down. But for a lot of us that end up in problem spots in life that don't include drugs and alcohol, I think relationship pattern from what we saw and witnessed growing up can inform what we get into and how we do relationship later on. And that's where the magic is, you know?
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. I mean, you're talking about like the relationship sides of things. And I mean, this is where most people struggle here. This is most people who are going to be, maybe taking something away from this, watching this in general. It's like, they might not be, the guy underneath the Fifth Street Bridge, with a needle in his arm. They're going to be the people who are codependently drunk, as I like to call it, the codependents, right? The people pleasers, the control addicts, the adrenaline junkies who are, where things are getting messed up in their lives. And what about drama?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're agents of chaos. Not just alcoholics and addicts though, but a lot of humans nowadays. I think society, this is my 2 cents on it, I think plays a huge part in the gimme, 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 now.
You got plenty of unhappy people who are compounding their unhappiness by comparing themselves to Instagram and TikTok versions of what real life, what a good life should be. When, like, man, a good life is pretty simple. My idea of what a good life was when I owned nothing, right? When I owned nothing but a drug addiction and some pending criminal charges. My idea of a good life was maybe I can have a reputable job. Maybe my parents won't say thanks for the warning when I say see you later. Maybe my friends won't be embarrassed of me, for whatever I just pulled, last night at the Greenhouse Bar in Nashville. And, maybe I pay my bills on time. That seemed like a great life. But now, you get into, you pull up Facebook after you have coffee in the morning, you're like, man, she's doing awesome. She's in the Virgin Islands for the 3rd time since April or whatever. You're like, man, like, am I doing this right? Am I okay? Am I winning enough? And I think like it's like a false scoreboard that we're putting ourselves up against.
How does someone who doesn't struggle with addiction get to a place where, they can exhibit openness to believe? And it's a bit of a loaded question, but what is your take on that?
Well, I think for a lot of people that I come across, certainly true for me, I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to become open to new ideas at moments of pain, in moments of seasons of being tried. So you hit me on a win streak, I'm gonna say, nah, Aaron, I'm good, bro. I already know this and this and this. But if I'm losing and I'm hurting and you say, hey man, just a suggestion, would you want to try this on? I might be like, yeah, bro, I think you might be onto something. The more doubt and pain that's in my day, that I think, natural for us, the more open we become to new ideas.
I think in talking about belief and coming to believe, and ultimately with the goal of cultivating, finding and then cultivating a relationship with something greater than yourself. I remember when I was still using, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still ripping and running. I'm still, degenerating all over town. I had those foxhole prayers. I'm still praying, right? But I'm like, God, please help me. God, please help me. Get me out of this. I swear I won't drink again. I swear I won't use again, right? But at the end of the day, the goal, I feel, is to move from a place of foxhole praying to understanding what you're praying to and realizing that it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Right? So what does believing in something greater than yourself mean to you in your journey now?
To act like I truly believe means that I take action, right? And to me, I'll go back to gratitude. If I truly believe I have a higher power who's invested in my best interest, even if I don't get milkshakes and trophies every day, but I do think that there is a benevolent, creative, kind, sweet force behind my life, and my job, as I see it, is to be in line with His wants for me. I got to be honest, kind, and loyal, right? And I got to start that at home, like in my own heart, in my own, from heart to head. How do I operate, right?
What role does openness and willingness play in all this?
I think being open-minded and willing, I think, are the starter kit, right? And they don't have to be in huge doses. They just got to be present. And in the absence of them being present, it could be a day-to-day, a fleeting thing, but what can we do to manufacture open-mindedness and willingness? What can we do with a client or a friend to help them remain open to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I don't run the clouds. I'm not the master of the universe, right? Those are the people that I see where where a true trust in a higher power could come in real handy, right? Because if I trust a higher power, that means I don't have to touch as much stuff. And most people who are in codependent relationships, who are over controlling, who touch too much stuff at work, they tend to have this belief that if I don't do it, it won't get done.
So when it comes to openness and willingness, I mean, I can't think of like a bigger tenet almost of what a gift may be, or I should say, like I can't think of a better gift that the second principle of coming to believe is really trying to offer you other than hope. Is that not it? Where it's like, wait a second, if I begin to take my hands off, now that I've admitted powerlessness, my life's unmanageable, I got to take my hands off the wheel for a second. Mm-hmm. What are we going towards? And that's a scary thing for people who have never done that before.
Right.
What's going to happen next?
Right. Well, because the only reason their hands are on the wheel so hard at this point is because the track record is like, if I let go, something bad's going to happen. Right. And so it's going to feel real counterintuitive to say, hey, I'm going to let a higher power kind of slide in, and maybe I'll just pedal and let him or her steer. I see a good bit, and I personally, I say very few different things, but like you said, like sometimes you just got to word it a little bit different, or pose it as a question or as an invitation. Well,
if you throw an invitation out there, you never know what you're going to get in return sometimes.
Right. Well, it's the same thing. Well, if you came to me and said, Darren, your boots are brown, your jeans are blue, and your shirt's ugly, I'll say true, and probably, because I know I'm colorblind, right? But if you said, Darren, your boots are brown, your jeans are blue, and I've got some interesting ideas for your next shirt, I'd be like, all right, man, cool. Tell me about it, And it's like, that's just how I could hear. I can hear feedback like that. And when we get into like hope is such a big word. But when you get beat up by life, when we're in contact with people who are getting beat by a relationship, or financial strains killing them, or their career, or going through a custody case, or whatever has got them up at night, giving them nightmares, hope is the most powerful drug there's ever been, right? You can wish for hope, right? Well, I wish, I can wish for this outcome, and maybe that'll happen. Really low percentage. Or maybe I could or if you're telling me that there is a higher power, or I call him God, you can call him whatever you want him, there's actually this really powerful, magnanimous force that wants what's best for me.
I think that's fair. And for the record, I call it God too.
Yeah.
And so for some people, I'll throw another one out there that might help some people out who are struggling. Good orderly direction.
Fair.
Have you ever worked with somebody who didn't have substance use disorder? Because once again, I want to make this more applicable to everybody. Cast the wider net, if you will. Mm-hmm. But someone who hasn't had substance use disorder or a commonly known addiction, but you've seen personally benefit from pursuing a relationship with God. Yeah.
I mean, I can't count or quantify how many people that I've come across who are not related to any sort of like 12-step recovery process, who have implemented 12-step processes into their lives and integrated that into like the way their family does relationship, and the remarkable changes, right? Because if you march through the whole deal, it's 1, 2, 3. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. Pretty cool, right?
One more time.
I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. Right? And that's not original material of mine. I heard that from somebody way more intelligent than me a long time ago. But it makes sense. And it totally takes, speaking to hope, like, I don't have to remember anything. I can't, he can, I'm going to let him. Brilliant.
it's just letting that in for a second. I equate it a lot of the time to whenever I discuss God, higher power, whatever is palpable or palatable, I should say, to the viewer who might be out there. I can't not bring up what's the worst case scenario here? If you're like, hey, you know what? My way of life isn't working. If you're at that spot already, congratulations, you're ahead of the game. But if you're at that spot then, and you go, what's the worst that can happen? Because that was part of my story. Part of my journey to find God was like, I was raised Jewish. I had a resentment against the Jewish faith, even though I couldn't name it. It was just, I was an angry dude who just hated everything apparently at that point. But, I started on my recovery journey, and ultimately when I got smacked upside the head with the prospect of having to allow something bigger than myself into my life, I thought to myself, what's the worst that can happen? It's like, if you need a life-saving medication, right? And it could be this one, but you can take this one, right? But you also have the guarantee that it's not going to hurt you if you don't need it.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, how does one come to recognize or embrace the idea of belief in their life if they're stuck in that previous mindset?
We spoke to pain. Pain's a great.
It's the great motivator.
It's a great nudger, right? So I'm sitting right here. I'm going, man, like I got to do something. I just don't know what. And I got my buddy Aaron comes over like, man, like you ever thought about maybe a spiritual connection or reaching out and maybe just kind of having a conversation with whoever you think runs the universe. And I'm like, I don't know. That sounds kind of like crystals to me, Aaron. Then if you said, well, what do you got to lose? And I go, what? I really don't have anything to lose, Like an invitation like that, it just kind of makes you think like, wait, maybe that can work for me. Or I've tried everything else that I know how to do. Maybe it's time to take a suggestion.
Is that where openness comes in?
I think so. Open. I'm open-minded enough to take a suggestion. I'm willing to go, hey, if you're up there, nice to meet you. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to meet on fresh terms, It is an open door, fresh, clean slate every day, every moment of every day.
If God gives us a clean slate every day, what is our obligation in that? What is your obligation, the recovering person who is now trying to help other people in life? Honest,
kind, and loving is my deal. And I fail at it every day, but that is my obligation, right? That is what I signed up for. I think to feel like I am eligible for grace, I must give honesty, kindness, and love away to God's other kids. Now, and again, like I said, I fail every day, right? But for me to receive grace, that's what I must try to do. And further on in the 12 steps, it's crazy. We get instructions for what we do when we screw up. So when we do step wrong, usually for myself, I step wrong out of fear. I'm either going to not get something that I want, or I'm going to get rid of something that I want to keep, whether it be my time, my energy, whatever. I step wrong. I have a direct process to go make that right, so I don't have to sleep with it.
How has your belief in something greater given you hope during a challenging time?
Take you back a couple years. Out of nowhere, my mother passed away, and it'll be 2 years ago in August. And dead asleep, I hear my name. All of a sudden, I'm in my kitchen. My sister-in-law's there, and she says, "Darren, I'm sorry, but you have to call your brother." I'm like, I look over, and Alexa says it's 12:08. My sister, she lives an hour away. She wants me to call my brother. That's really weird because he would have been with her. So I call my brother, and he tells me my mom's passed. And like my thing was like, how could God let this happen? Unbelievable, and just like the sadness of like, you go through like the doubt of like, I wish I would have said this, in our last text message exchange, I should have been sweeter. I should have been more attentive. I should have answered quicker, the whole thing, and then like the whole thing kicks in where I'm like, whoa. God knows that she knows, that I know, that we know, that I loved her with every fiber of my being. And she didn't pass like feeling like I should have answered her quicker. You know what I mean? That's just my stuff, right?
But we play that tape though.
Yeah, we play the tape, and then you go through the whole process where you gotta pick the place, and you gotta pick the outfit, and you do all the stuff to like get somebody ready to go into the services and all that. And it's like, man, like I talk to God on a loop, probably a little bit rougher than I would have liked, but I was constantly in contact, for that entire season, man, and it was long, and only a relationship with God could have gotten me to the point as it did where I get to, we get to keep her name alive. My son and I, we get to keep her name alive, and we laugh and we joke about like, oh, Kiki would have got you for that, but like that to me is like without a belief that I don't have to understand it. It hurt, but even without my understanding, like that was supposed to happen.
I mean, that was one of the things that on a personal note, I mean, really was tough for me to in my entry to reestablishing a connection with something was, my mother passed away when I was 21. I got sober when I was 23 by the grace of God. And, she never got to see me sober. She never got to see that. I was that guy who stole her pain pills. Yeah. That was me. And she had that weighs on me. Even now, like I feel myself getting emotional thinking about it. But, I've made peace with that. Me and her, we have made that peace with each other, and I feel that now. I feel like it's one of the things that trips people up the most in their journey is, well, I can't believe in something that allows such terrible things to happen on earth. I'll tell you this right now. Darren, I've had multiple young men who I'm working with, they'll hit me with that. And I go, why are you so focused on that while you're ripping and running right now? You're worried about what's happening in Ghana, right?
Yeah.
While you're out here ripping and running, ripping people off and being a complete degenerate. Like, let's focus on this first.
Right.
Then let's worry about Ghana.
Yeah.
On this journey, like, you have to obviously be open, but to what degree does it really matter when keeping an open mind, for lack of a better word, that something can come into you? It's such a foreign concept.
I think when we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, right? And then we say, well, sanity as it pertains to what? Shopping, relationships, her, him, my sense of responsibility for the world's well-being, or for my, for this person in my life, balance sheet at work, whatever the deal is, right? Like, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, to put me right. Okay, so I mean, for me to believe that, I think I have to be open a small bit to begin the process. I think at that point it just depends on how much relief do you want, Aaron. If some relief is good, more's better. We're not talking like drugs, like, well, if a gram's good, then I want an 8-ball. We're talking about like, well, hey, if some relief feels good, and I'm sleeping a little better, and I'm able to take care of myself a little bit better, why not just go ahead and get all in there?
Almost as if, you're not going to get 10% reward if you're going to put in 10% effort.
Right.
That's interesting.
I haven't done drugs in 15 years, right? I can still have a real bad day, depending on how much stuff I feel like I need to control. Or the things that I find untenable in my day. I have a 7-year-old little boy who we're working on patience in traffic, right? Like, most of the time, the model he sees for patience in traffic is me, and I'm cool as a fan, Every now and then, though, I'll have had enough, I'm in a hurry or whatever. I got to pee, I'm thirsty, whatever the deal is, and I just can't imagine and I'll say, unbelievable, right? This next just unfairness from life. We're talking about a stoplight that's going to last 45 seconds. You know what I mean? So like everybody's got that version of a 45-second stoplight in their life that they just can't take right now.
That's a great point.
We've all got them.
That's a great point. It's that 45-second stoplight analogy. Let's think about this for a second. My 45-second stoplight, let me try to think about this, is when my wife knows there's a task to get done and she puts it on me, even though I've just done 5. and I want to react to it rather than act accordingly. Now, she's going to watch this and she's going to
I was about to ask.
She's going to get mad at me for this one, and then she's going to say it. Then she's going to claim I'm gaslighting her. That's what's going to happen. I'm just saying. But for me, like those are the things that we talk about a psychic change. We talk about things, spiritual awakening. That's farther down the road. But one of those things is like now I can look back at this with clarity. I can look back at this with clarity and take a postmortem on it and be like, oh well, this is why I'm reactionary to this as opposed to just trying to act accordingly to something, right? And I think that's where willingness really comes into play too, because we talk about people who, at the very beginning who are beaten down. I use the analogy of, I was the race car I didn't come across the finish line looking nice and neat. I came across, the engine's on fire, I got 3 wheels blowing off, sparks coming out the back, but at least I got across the finish line, and that finish line being just pit of despair with nowhere else to go, right?
Yeah.
And with that does come willingness. We talk about the gift of desperation, right? And when it's, people think of desperation maybe as a bad thing. I can't think of a better place to be when you're trying to make a change, could you?
Hey man, the gift of desperation is why I'm here. I think it's the most, and to me, that's my favorite knocked out acronym for God. It's the gift of desperation.
How does one stay willing to grow and evolve in their understanding as time goes on?
To stay willing, for me, as a guy with multiple stimuli in my life, and undiagnosed or unmedicated, certainly diagnosed, unmedicated ADHD, I've got to have some rock solid beliefs that I visit often, right? And so for me, to stay there, I have to remember where I came from.
Keep it fresh.
Keep it fresh, man. Like I know who I am and what I am and where my life will devolve to be if I don't stay current with what's been given.
You chalk that up to a decision being made, a belief?
I chalk that up to, so I'll start with pain. Pain is too great to proceed. So the pain to change became less scary than the pain it was going to take to keep going at the same rate. And so I veered. I was placed on a different track. I did not resist being put on this different track. And now I protect this different track. And going from different track to protecting that track, that's a whole nother drop down menu to where I learned to, I'm not proud of if I'm proud of my new life, I'll wave it out there and, hope it doesn't fall out the window. If I'm grateful for it, then I insure it, and I protect it and I insulate it.
Most people think that a lot of this journey is peaches and unicorns. And I mean, we can both attest that it's the farthest thing from it. There are challenges, there are doubts, there are pitfalls, there's Vietnamese traps in the floor with spikes that'll jump up and get you and whatnot. But what doubts, what doubts and challenges have people encountered at this pivotal moment that you've maybe experienced or that you've seen firsthand?
I think for anybody outside of our immediate recovery world, I think the tendency to say, okay, this whole idea about higher power, I'm in on that. I'm open to it and I'm willing to try. The magic happens when life keeps going and the same decisions that this person has been making regarding their relationship, right? Let's say it's a codependent relationship. They catch themselves in the act and go, oh wait, no. We're have trust today. We're doing something new today, right? And they stop the knee-jerk reaction and they allow the situation to play out.
Are having doubts common in this?
I think doubts and skepticism and being resistant and jumping back and forth, I think that's only natural for any growth pattern in life.
Well, I'll take it a step further then. Do you think that doubts are actually a net benefit in it? Because, at least for me, I think to myself, hell, it says it in the Old Testament, it encourages people to, God is always you could basically, his old message is, you fight with me. You could argue with me, but you're going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to do what you're told, and I think to myself, well, if I'm doubting something, it's inherently going to make me dig deeper into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I think doubting to the point where we're still diligent in, right? Like,
That's an important distinction, yeah.
right, like doubting but not casting off. Doubting but still like, okay, I'm in the boat here. I'm doing my homework. But I think there's, to your point, I think there's some value to going, I'm doubtful on this, so I'm going to dig harder.
Maybe doubtful into, hey, I started believing in something, or maybe I tried this, in the past. When my life wasn't going too good back in 2007 or whatever. I tried joining a church. That really, but I'm not going to completely shun away from the idea. Maybe that just wasn't the right idea. And me personally, I have my, I wish more people went to church. This is my 2 cents, here in America. But coming to believe for me, it started in one place and ended up in a way different other place. And I'm grateful for that journey. But it is also because I had doubts, I think. I think it's only natural. Like you said, I think it's natural to have doubts. And where I think it's beneficial is because then you get exposed to different concepts. In one book of recovery circles, in the AA Big Book, it says, be quick to see where religious people are correct. Mm-hmm. That was not something I wanted to hear.
Nor I, right? Because what I wanted, by the time I read that page, what I was really celebrating was this whole new paradigm for life that I've got doesn't include church. Not at all, right? I don't have to go to Saturday at 5:30 or noon at 12. I don't have to do any of that, I don't have to fill out an offering. I don't have to pray the rosary. It's what I didn't have to do. And I started thinking about the benefits. And if you look at the tenets of all the major faiths, be kind, be loving, be honest. Pretty much golden rule, or dumb it down. Treat people as you'd want to be treated.
I'll take it a step further too. I love the golden rule, but I love the platinum rule even more. You know what the platinum rule is?
No.
Treat others the way they want to be treated.
Ah, okay.
But now that's a whole different thing where it's like, okay, maybe, there's certain areas where, it can get a little funky there, especially with modern culture and whatnot. But it gets a little funky there.
Yeah.
But in your line of work too, what tools do you have, do you use when you're working with people that are doubting, or having a hiccup at this point of coming to believe?
So gratitude, questioning people around what they're grateful for is always a helpful thing to do. Because even, it sucks, right? Like you're having a terrible day and then somebody talks you into being grateful. Even somebody on a horrible losing streak. And what would make it worse? And they tell you the handful of things that can make it worse. Man, glad that didn't happen. What do you think? What do you think would kept you from getting there? Or why do you think that didn't happen yet?
When we're speaking about these different facets and different applications of, coming to believe is kind of like a universal, we think we've kind of hammered this out so far. It's like a universal net benefit. There's no real downside to exploring it, but there's actual pitfalls, real world pitfalls to refusing to take, to even be willing, right?
Sure.
But as it pertains to substance use and non-substance abuse, have you ever encountered someone who struggles with substance use disorder, but you find out while working with them that there's actually a stronger underlying issue that's messing them up?
Yeah, and most commonly it's an overarching mental illness issue. Emotional wounds would qualify, and I'd say if you were to draw a circle around emotional wounds, I'd say, not highlight red letter trauma sexual abuse. I'm talking about just living through a friction-filled childhood. Mom, dad, maybe mom, dad are divorced, or there's heavy financial struggle going on in the family. Lots of driving to get multiple kids to multiple events, lack of attention to any one kid, that type of stuff tends to take the hole that might be the size of a quarter and make it the size of a basketball. It never really made sense to me because I never really believed that you're either an alcoholic strictly because of genetics, or you're not strictly because of genetics, right? Something made you want to connect with a substance that eased the way you felt, no matter what that was, right? And for a lot of us, it starts with an emotional wound. It's either an emotional wound that creates a little bit of self-doubt, or an emotional wound that just says, hey, I'm a piece of shit, I'm not good enough.
Do you happen to find that it's different between people who might be strictly substance use disorder and people who are these other co-occurring disorders or mental health issues that we're talking about as it pertains to coming to believe?
Yeah, I do, because I mean, if you're talking about somebody with with a thought disorder, a mood disorder, that can be almost impossible to pierce with introducing new ideas, and even with the most grand, well thought out, well timed invitation. You've got somebody that's not playing with real fact in real time. That can be really difficult.
Yeah, it's so amazing nowadays. I mean, I look at the world that we live in, and it's almost like tailor made. I feel like it's like a design. Like the world now is like the designer drug that's just tailored right to exacerbate a lot of these mental health disorders, these mood disorders, these thought process disorders. Mm-hmm. We talked about, the people who just scroll on Instagram. Like, it can't be healthy to just consistently look at people that you're now lusting over their life.
Right.
Like, it can't be good. Meanwhile, kids nowadays, it's like they have to, be staring at the screen to, they have no executive functioning skills for the most part. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what happens later in life, when faced with needing to cope?
Mm-hmm. Or find interest in everyday things. Like this morning I had a conversation with my son. Daddy, I'm bored. So it's okay to be bored. He's like, but no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, being bored's okay. And it's like it's a total, like, and given we're out of town, we're not near, like, he's out of range of like his comfortable spots and all that stuff. So it's a little bit different, but and it's not something I hear from him often at home. But what I'm seeing, like, all the way around is you're seeing kids get engaged with screens earlier and earlier. You're seeing comparisons from self to unattainable lifestyles and bodies. I mean, I think body image disorders are rampant at this point, and I think they're only going to get extremely worse.
Why is that? Why do you see the trajectory getting worse?
Just because of the likelihood that a young man or a young lady is going to look on Instagram or TikTok and go, oh my God, like, that's what I'm supposed to look like. And until I do, I'm failing, right? So for a guy who wants to be jacked, or he wants to be lean, or he wants to have, tattoos up to his ear, whatever the deal is, whatever the metric is that interests that kid, until I get there, I can't be happy, or I won't feel this nature of being okay.
So let's take that example right there of that individual that you're describing, right? They come to you, right, and they're debilitated now. They're like, Darren, I don't know what to do. My life has reached this point. I've lusted after X, Y, and Z. I'm consumed by it. It's affecting my personal relationships, my finances, all the bedevilments that we talk about, like all these things, like now I'm prey to misery and depression, yada, 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 all these different things. What advice would you give that person who is curious now because of their circumstances and exploring a process of recovery and ultimately a journey towards coming to believe?
Did this with a guy not long ago around gambling. Okay.
That's a vicious one.
Vicious, man. So the first thing I wanted them to do was get his name off of all of his accounts, business and personal. Very begrudgingly. Well, what if I need this or this or this? Yeah, man, but like, what if you lose another $50K before lunch? So we did that. We got rid of his. You can no longer get a major carrier phone that doesn't have web access, but you can make one of those. You can make the dumbest phone really hard to get on the web. So we did that. He can still get in trouble if he wanted to, but it would take a long time. And then we built out some accountability. We built out at home with his wife, built out with his attorney who put on the bank accounts. His got a couple different sponsors and 12-step groups, a therapist and a psychiatrist. So we built him a board of accountability, everybody playing with the same facts, same time. That's the thing. When we get to the point where like, hey, I'm in a painful spot in my life and I need to change. I think that's the biggest thing we can do is one, get a professional's eye. Two, build accountability that counts. You know, very few of us learn when we got no chips on the table. You know, and then from there, I think you just got to monitor progress, you monitor fallbacks, and then you push the pieces accordingly.
Do you believe that openness and willingness helps to bridge divides, between people with different belief systems, maybe? I
think so, and you know, it's really if you took Tom from the South,
I couldn't tell.
Couldn't tell, yeah. Boots and twang, being down in the South, like these different denominations of churches, they'll disagree on like one thing out of 100. And they'll sit there and go, yeah, well, those guys aren't going to heaven. Like, I'm a believer. They're not believers. And the other guys are saying the same thing. Like, guys, you guys are arguing about grits versus oatmeal. Like we're not arguing about nothing. And I think it's part of just the nature of being human today is like, we look for differences as opposed to looking to connect and be alike.
When we apply, like we think about this now transposed onto the conversation about someone in a dark place trying to better their lives and coming to believe in something greater than themselves, it's almost like, you know, my favorite acronym of all time, keep it simple, stupid.
The name of my home group, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I gotta come check it out when I'm down there.
Cool.
But no, keep it simple, stupid. For me, I think of it as just, we don't have to overcomplicate this for a second. Like, we spent a long time in our lives overcomplicating things, tailoring, bending life to our will. Mm-hmm. And where exactly did that get us? Where exactly? Where did it get you?
Look around. Yeah.
Look around right now.
Yeah.
You know, but then we start taking some suggestion. We start opening up to things that we were not about, shut off to.
Right.
Things start to get better a little bit. How does one explain that? I tend to defer to just maybe it's something greater than me working in my life.
And I think that thing that's greater than you, I think that thing, and this kind of ties into like the next tiered sequence deal, but like that thing that wants to see you happy and healthy and wants to see me happy and healthy, it's not just so you get to wake up and feel like you won the lottery, right? Or for me, it's because I think that God, as I'll call him, wants to stop suffering of people that are still suffering the way you and I did. And by making your life cool and by making my life more livable, those people that we each individually knew way back then, they're going to look and go, hey man, Aaron looks like he's like, I saw Aaron at the store today, man. He used to be missing teeth and like wearing janky shoes and like looking funky. Man, he was smiling. He was almost floating, man. Like, what's going on with him, right? Or, man, y'all see Darren? He used to be bouncing in and out of jails, fatter than shit, hated his life. He's been sober a couple years now, man. Looks like things are working. You know, like I think that God takes millions of us. He takes each one of us and kind of holds us up just a little bit so that those people that we used to run around with, that's still suffering, still sick, can see and go, oh, wait a minute. Like maybe they're onto something.
People notice things.
Yeah.
You know, speaking about people, how does your belief now influence your relationships in the world?
I'll say this, prior to getting into recovery, I had no idea what it was like to have a bone of integrity in my body, especially as it pertains to personal relationships with women. I was kind of like act like a gentleman, but ultimately like that was definitely an act. I am, you know, I'm like the coyote like the hungry coyote and the Bugs Bunny, you know, like looking at every woman I see like a piece of meat and trying to camouflage that. And, you know, as it was actually through a breakup early on in my recovery, I got asked by a guy I really look up to. He's like, hey, do you love her as God's kid? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, good. If you truly loved her as God's kid, then you understand that she was never like your property and she's not your business anymore. And I was like, and like you said, like that twist of words, like set me free. Like I was like, okay, I'm not going to be jealous. my only business is to not know hers, I'm moving on. Like that's what it hurt. Like it didn't make it like lay down easy to do, but that was the thing. I'm going to love her as God's other kid. She owes me nothing, and I'm going to move on. Boom.
That's a fundamental change in mindset.
Right, because the prior versions of me would take everything is like it's like the same wound over and over and over. I'm just not getting what I want, and I want to have what I want.
Do you attribute that to your starting point of being that you were willing to come to believe in something that would be able to change your life around?
As I look back, I can say that because that was definitely a growth thing. But I don't think sitting here today that I thought that when I first began thinking about a higher power, that God was too concerned with my romantic relationship.
Oh no, I mean early.
He was going to leave that to me. I got that covered.
No, early on, and obviously this is looking back. Hindsight's 20/20, trying to bring something to people who are currently in this hopeless state of body and mind that that you and I both found ourselves at one point in our lives. I can look back and be like, yep, I remember that, and now I can take a postmortem on it. I always love to say that one of the greatest gifts that my God's ever given me is a sense of clarity. It's amazing because my father's almost built his entire platform around the sense of clarity, and for me it's when I figured out that what my God likes to give me is clarity, because then I get to go out into the world and understand myself better, which then I could be of service to other people, right?
Right.
Real quick, I want to kind of get back to hope, openness, and willingness. In what ways do you see those three things really reflected in your daily actions when working with others or even in your personal life? Does that make a little bundle that allows you to do what you got to do today?
In a way, yeah, because the three of those things packaged together: hope, hope. That's hard to say. Hope, openness, willingness. Right. Early on in my journey, I was taught that I had to act as if the next miracle is on the way. And so for me, every day, I mean, that can look different, but my actions should not change because the next miracle is on the way. The next awesome, healing moment I get to see in a family's history is going to come at the darkest moment, So I've always got to keep pushing. My energy has to stay steady. In my own life, whether it's trying to grow our business a little bit, or whatever the deal is. I'm not young anymore. You're trying to get ready for retirement one day. The next good thing is around the corner, and I have to act as if it's coming, because if I act as if if I act in a defeated way, it's sure as not. Hope to me means there are things that are completely unaccounted for, great things that will come to happen in my life. I have no idea what they are. Openness means I've got to keep trucking no matter how dark it is. And willing means I will be challenged to change my notion of what's possible. And my opportunity is to continue to provide the motion.
I love that you alluded to something. You mentioned something that we're going to be getting into later in this series of, well, how does one start to change these things, these behaviors, the thought processes, and what ultimately do we have to do once we take action? Because right now, admitting powerlessness, being willing to believe in something, right? These things so far, these are just decisions. There's no action behind it, really.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be like, okay, I'm powerless. Okay, I can maybe believe in something. But that right here, at this step of the process, that's a hair's breadth away from, I'm never drinking again. Mm-hmm. I'm never drinking again. What time is it? Time to go drink.
Yeah.
That could change real quick. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to place this bet. Oh, but it's Super Bowl Sunday. After Super Bowl Sunday, the yet. How do we get everlasting change? How do we get everlasting belief? How do we get everlasting connection with that thing that now we're pursuing that, if we allow it to, can now be the governor of our lives?
I get to maintain belief as long as I maintain consistent action. I had a therapist who's he's like the narrator of positive thoughts in my life. We're going over just back and forth over this, the way I feel is governing what I do. And he'd had enough of this out of me at this day. And he's not a stern guy at all, but he said, Darren, take your ass and your mind will follow. And I said, okay. And then I was expecting like a long soliloquy from him. He was just gone. It was a virtual session. He was just gone.
He just left you with that.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I could sit here in this uncomfortable chair for the next 2 hours, or I could go do the thing that I told him I was going to do. So I went and did the thing I told him I was going to do.
It's very similar to like, there's no way on earth that I'm going to, if I keep doing what I'm doing, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. There's no way if I keep doing that, I need to flip my behavior around rather than think my way into better acting. I got to act my way into better thinking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was a powerful one. I can't take credit for that statement though.
No, but it's so simple and it's so true.
Exactly.
Like think about how many things in your life where, okay, for me, for years and years, fitness and nutrition and like just holistic self-care meant so much to my life. And then one day it was like I just took a karate chop and just shelved that off, right? And it only occurred to me that what I was doing was like a complete 180 from the way what I'd really like built like my health on, I'd done a 180, and it didn't dawn on me until one day I heard my son say, he told his mom, he said, yeah, Mom, boys don't cook. And the reason he said that was because he'd watched me order Uber Eats for like 15 months straight. He'd never seen me cook anything. Or, in that season of his life, his memory of being what it is. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not just killing myself here. I'm setting him up to be, in an adult wheelchair by the time he's 10, because he can't walk. He can't tie his own shoes. And so we get those, like when we remain kind of open, like we get those moments where we go, oh wait, hold up. I'm making a big mistake here.
What do you think about fake it till you make it in a relationship with God?
I think that's great.
Really?
I think take the action, right? If fake it till you make it, building a relationship with God looks like getting on your knees more mornings than not, coming up with a non-generic gratitude list. Like, let's get granular with it. Let's just talk gratitude with a higher power for 5 minutes, right? Maybe a structured prayer too, every morning. And let's go through the day and try to connect with God at times of stress or joy. Let's say thank you or say, hey, I'm scared. And then let's review our day. Let's say some prayers of gratitude that, hey, I get to do this. I think I get to do this again tomorrow. If that was a fake out, I'd be happy with that.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I look at this and so hear me out on this one. I'm Jewish, right? Wasn't always, I'm always a Jew, but I'm not always Jewish, not religious. Earlier on, I was told to say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven. Okay? I still say it to this day. Who's to say that isn't the thing keeping me sober? I don't know. That's where faith comes into play, though. But I was told early on, I sent out, coming to believe to me, to really boil it down is I feel like the easiest way to explain it is the second principle is really sending out the spiritual bat signal. What's out there and can you help me?
And will you?
Exactly.
Will you and can you, right?
So when I'm told, hey, Aaron, you say the Lord's Prayer every day. Okay. What's that going to do? I don't know. It might work, though.
I don't know, but you're better off trying.
You're better off trying, right?
Yeah.
Right? So I think in a way, we talk about hope, openness, and willingness. I mean, like, what does everybody who's in a dark place want? They want some glimmer of hope. What are they unwilling to do more than anything? Be open. How do you crack through that? Instill a sense of willingness to the best of your ability. As a mentor, as a sage, as whatever you can to people. That's at least where I kind of come from with that.
Yeah. Well, so where the first real, I guess, structured prayer that I said outside of the Catholic faith was actually the third step prayer in the big book on page 63. And it says, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bonds of self so I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties so that victory over them would bear witness to those I would help with thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And I just thought, man, that's kind of a cold way to say, I really suck at what I'm trying to do here, and you seem to be pretty good at it, and I think I'd rather do it your way than my way. And I think for a lot of us, whether we're alcoholics, we don't have anything to do with substance use disorder, we get so caught up in self and the power of self that it's easy to lose hope, right? Because like at whatever we struggle with, our way of managing it is trash. And I gotta like that's one of the questions I ask people, like, hey, like if we can get to a place where, yeah, I can believe that maybe there's a God. Okay, cool. Do you think that version of God has a better handle on this thing than you do? Got to. And so then all you got to create is, okay, remember, you just told me you think God can handle this relationship better than you, right? So then now all we're building is like the space for that muscle memory to grow, right? Because if I can believe, even though I don't have a firm belief yet, if I can believe in something better than me, all I got to do is remember to drop and stop touching stuff and give this power that I say I trust some time to be trusted.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given, but you've never taken?
That I've never taken?
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of an overarching thing, and I'll give my dear friend Jamie Vance credit for this. But he and I go to the vault. You know, whether a small decision feels big or a big decision is just big, we take those to each other. And when we get to the decision piece, his thing for me is always burn the boats. And I can honestly say that the very first time he told me that was about getting into my field and what I do for a living. But there are several of those conversations where he's told me to burn the boats, and I didn't take his advice where I wish I had. And to me, burn the boats means when you make a decision, make that decision with full conviction and just roll with it, you know?
What, in your opinion, is the number one key takeaway when faced with the challenge, for somebody struggling with the challenge, I should say, of becoming willing to believe that something out there could work in their life and change them for the better?
For someone that's on the fence considering is, I think we made it taste, you got to make the medicine taste pretty good. I think we did a good job today. Can your situation get any worse? If you just believe this today, take a spoonful of belief and say, you know what, if I'm willing to believe that maybe there's a power greater than myself out there, would it worsen my situation? And depending the answer you get back, act accordingly, you know?
Do you think that bad habits and unhealthy behaviors necessarily, do you think they're psychological addictions? The bad behaviors, the unhealthy actions that people take, are they psychological addictions, disorders? And I want to specify the difference between the two, but more on the addiction side.
You know, I think a lot of us that come from an addiction side have certain self-defeating patterns where it's almost like we're not sure that we truly deserve this life that has seemed so far beyond our reach for so long. And so we'll take those mini step backs, you know. We'll have a leak where we'll gamble or spend a little bit recklessly on, you know, not a crazy amount of money, or, you know, we'll give ourselves a little bit of leeway in the relationship department, or, you know, maybe obsess a little bit too much physically about gym time or nutrition or whatever. I think, you know, we've all got to be precious in one direction or the other. You know, wouldn't be. I don't think it'd be any fun for us to be perfect. You know.
And finally, what's just one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody who is currently struggling with something right now, overwhelmed, overburdened, hopeless, feeling like there's no way but down for them?
Man, for anybody who's out there struggling right this second, that's watching this for the first time, going, man, these guys maybe they're onto something. I'd say that if you're sitting there doubting if your life can get worse, I can promise you that it can. You know, we've seen it happen too many times. But if you would think that your life can get any better, the first thing I would do is call your closest contact that's a healthy person and say, hey, I need help. Will you help me? I need to build accountability. I need to build connection, and I need to build a team because I can't keep living this way, and go from there.
Wow. Thank you, Darren, for coming in today, man. I'm so happy that we got you in here. This is good stuff, man. This is powerful stuff people need to hear.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Thank you.